Hi, everyone. This is Mary Long with the Plein Painters of Chicago. And today we are doing a video chat with Stephanie Weidner. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello.
Hi. So Stephanie is going to be our guest artist on July 7th. We'll be at the Riverwalk at Wabash, and we'll be painting the Wrigley Building's huge flag, 4th of July flag, which Stephanie loves, and we do too. So Stephanie, we're going to be looking forward to you painting with us and doing a demo for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so today, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. What I love about these video chats is that we get a chance to know you as our guest artist, but really get to know you as an artist. So I'd love to just kind of get to the point and just ask you a few questions about your practice and we'll get a little tour of your studio and hear a little bit more about you. So what brought you to plein air painting?
Well, let's see. I started taking a class at the Palette and Chisel because Errol bought it for me. I'm not always very teachable. So I always thought of myself as creative, but there's a difference between being creative and then really knowing what you're doing. So Errol bought me a class at the Palette and Chisel.
And we are talking about Errol Jacobson,
Errol Jacobson, yes, we are partners, life partners and studio partners. And so I took a class there. The first one was with Michael Van Zyl for figure, but somehow I think the next one was portrait with Scott Tallman Powers. And of course, he started the plein air group. So we wanted to experience plein air, and I know Errol told the story before, but we went and visited the group painting several times before we actually painted ourselves. And then we went out and painted ourselves on a cold day. And it was a bit of a disaster. The paintings were a disaster. The experience was a disaster because we were cold and we hadn't thought out the bathroom situation. It was okay. And I kept my first painting. So it's horrible. But I studied architecture, so I did have a lot of figure drawing in school. I was in a 6-year program, and I learned perspective, and then, of course, drawing, plans, elevations, sections, details. So it's not that drawing was completely foreign to me.
Well, it's really noticeable, too, in your paintings because they're beautiful in terms of perspective and just your ability to make them look real.
Yeah. So I know I've got some paintings behind me, and I know I like to focus on elevations a lot and true perspective. So, and that may come from my background. Elevations are the easiest to draw.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, plein air painting for you, where does that fit with your whole body of work? I think I've seen you do some still lifes.
Yeah, Errol and I both started off plein air painting, and he sort of went the cityscape route, and I really tended towards still lifes, which is nice. And it's funny, but I think the still life education helped me with my plein air work, and vice versa. But for example, with still life, you have these little objects and you have to set up depth, and usually it's with shadow and space. And then if you take that outside, it helps you define depth in your paintings. Shadows are so important. Shadows create the shape. It's not just the object itself.
That makes so much sense. And to really spend the time on a still life gives you time to really think about how that happens, like you just said, around the shadows. But also when you get outside, then as things are changing, what you're really looking at and how to approach those.
Right. And plein air painting has helped me paint faster because with plein air painting, you're chasing the sun and you have to paint fast because the sun's going to change. Now, you can change the design of your painting along the way, but usually you paint what you're attracted to first. I mean, every once in a while, it's like, oh, I like the sun better like that. But you learn to paint fast. And I've taken that. I think that's helped me in the studio, too.
Yeah.
To paint.
That makes a lot of sense. So tell us about how you approach a painting. How do you think about a subject, and how do you start a painting?
Well, when I go out and paint plein air, sometimes it's stressful. You're out there, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to paint? And I tend to look for values and color, something of interest. I don't particularly like large street scenes. Mm-hmm. I don't want to paint a big street. It's unless you want to paint cars, and some people paint some great cars. It doesn't do that much for me. I mean, it has to tell a story. I either have to feel good about what I'm painting, like it elicits a feeling, like a door, like a lonely door, or a colorful door. The color might elicit joy, or it might, solicit some sense of solitude. I like to look for a feeling, but the most important thing when I find a spot is to make sure there's some contrast, there's some value differences. The color you can change. And it was Michael Van Zyl who pointed out once, he said, you can take a roll of film to Walgreens and get it developed, and it can be terrible. Everybody can be green in it. The colors are wrong, but the values are there and you'll still know who is who. So, I think the values are most important. But I typically on a sunny day, I look for a lot of contrast. I want a streak of sunlight and something in shadow.
Yeah. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Well, then let's go to the other end, thinking about how do you finish a painting?
How I finish a painting.
Your last 15 minutes.
Let me back up and say how I started painting.
All right.
One of the things I do is I go out, I set up, and I try to set up quickly. I use a little bit of turp. I use Gamsol, and it's the only time I use Gamsol when I paint. And I lay in an underpainting. I tone the board usually with ultramarine blue and alizarin, assuming it's a sunny day. I might switch it and add transparent red or olive green if it's not so sunny, but I try to get a purple of some sort. And then I wipe it out. And so it's the only time I use turp. And that gives me my base. I can see the shapes in there. Sometimes you see this mass of color on my board, and it's like, I see what I'm painting. Nobody else would ever see it, but I can see it between the darks and the lights. And then when I paint, I do some destruction with brushes and while I'm painting. But at the end, that's when, if I've got lettering on a sign, I'll go in and do that. Sometimes I might have to do the lettering at home. It's very rare, but usually I'll just wait till the end and do the lettering then, because lettering is, it might need to be a little drier. I also will go add any detail that's missing, but a lot of times at the end, that's when I go back and finish the trees in the sky, because I can let those go. They're not going to change too much, but if you're painting like a house in Cuba with laundry hanging there, you want to get the laundry before somebody comes out and takes it. So sometimes you have to paint the things that are going to move. Somebody's sitting at a cafe, you want to paint them first, just because they might move.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You were talking about the terps that you only use it at the beginning. You're not talking about when you're cleaning your brushes, but just when you're adding that maybe to your paint.
I never clean my brushes with turp.
You don't.
If I do, it's rare. I'm a little puzzled why so many people use it. I just use Ivory soap. I wipe the paint off.
I'm sorry. During your painting, when you're needing to change color.
No. I just bring enough brushes, and I keep the light brushes, in one section, and the dark brushes. I use dark for darks and lights for lights. David LaFell uses 2 brushes and 2 paper towels for a portrait. It's like, I don't know, if I need to clean a brush, I just wipe it off.
Yeah.
And if it's light, it's probably going to be okay with other lights. So, yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So I don't know why people have to clean their brushes so much while they paint.
Well, just let's talk about your process a little bit. One of the things I know about you is that you're very careful about your health and about your habits in terms of your paints and things. So what? And also, you're very concerned about climate change and green and things like that. So how do you bring all that into your painting? How do you think about that?
Well, I'm not sure I bring it all, but there's a couple things I do. I wear nitrile gloves. I have a box here that I use. Yeah, can you see them? Nitrile gloves. They're black gloves. I can wear one pair for a month, before they fall apart.
I don't know how you do that. Okay.
Oh, well, it might depend. I think you can get them in different thicknesses. So maybe these are thicker than some. But I wear gloves because for health reasons, you have to be focused on absorption. So there's absorption through the skin, inhalation, what you breathe in, and ingestion, so you don't want to eat. So I will take my gloves off before I eat something, pick something up to eat. But, so if I need to sand a board here, I go outside, or I'll do it over a utility sink. So it's not, it's not throughout the house. And then I'll use a damp rag to wipe it off afterwards to remove the dust. Mm-hmm. But we also have an air filter in the house, an Aller air filter. So, to help. I don't know if it's the end all or be all, but yeah.
And you don't use too many like paper towels and things, as I've noticed.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it might have to do with I don't clean my brushes so much when I'm out on the site. But yeah, out painting. But yeah, I tend to, when I wash my brushes at home, I take those paper towels that I've dried them with, and I will reuse. They'll dry in a short amount of time, and then I reuse them for my when I go out and paint. So I only use a few, maybe 2 to 4 paper towels. I don't carry a big roll. I just grab a few paper towels and put them in my bag.
Yeah, some people say that the sign of a plein air painter is the paper towel roll under their arm. So that's not.
Yeah. I guess I wonder what people are doing with it, but I guess I just paint differently.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's great.
But I paint with turf. I just carry this little bottle with me, and maybe at the beginning, just use a half a teaspoon or something. So this will last a while.
Well, you always carry very lightly. You have your small easel. Mm-hmm. That's always amazing to me. And I know that I learned about the lightest tripod from you, just because, and I think it's especially for us more diminutive, short people.
Yeah. And I use a really light tripod. It's actually a camera tripod, but for most people it'd be too short, and it's too light for most easels. But for the little easel I created, it works just fine.
Yeah, and I find that I can't put a umbrella on the light easel. But, so I just have two easels now. So I know you share your space there, your studio with Errol. What's that like, sharing a space with another artist?
Well, I guess the thing is you have to be willing to compromise or just not worry about the lighting, because Errol paints with all the lights on. I would prefer not to have them on, but I can adjust, so I might have multiple shadows on if I'm doing a still life, I might have multiple shadows because of the lights. And, I just adjust. I see what I want to see, or I'll go and turn the lights off for a second and capture it in my head and turn the lights back on. And then the other thing is you sort of have to agree on music if you're playing music. So, and I think the one thing is Errol paints in the studio more often than I do. Mm-hmm. So I have to not feel guilty about not painting.
All right. Yeah, that's great. I'm sorry I didn't ask him the same question.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him.
Yeah, that's good. Maybe we'll do an addendum to his video chat. So Stephanie, what advice do you have for other plein air painters?
Well, I would advise them to take lots of workshops. And I've benefited from so many workshops. And I just want to give a few examples. So I've taken many with Scott Tallman Powers, but I remember one time, I think in the beginning, my paintings were more gray, you know, they didn't pop. You didn't see that contrast. And he was correcting a streak of sunlight between two buildings that came across the sidewalk. And he's mixing this color and he's mixing it. And I'm like, really? Really? You're going to paint that bright, that hot? You know, and it wasn't just white. Had orange and yellow in it. It was, you know, it was a hot, bright color. And then he put it down and it's like, oh my gosh, it just popped. And so I always remember that, like when doing the sunlight, make it pop, make it pop. And then Diane Rath, we didn't take a workshop per se, and she's gone now. She died a few years ago, but she's a wonderful painter and she's known for her paintings. But she did take a group of people to San Miguel de Allende. And it wasn't a workshop, but she was willing to help. And she came over and I was probably painting every leaf on a tree or every detail or every brick or every stone in this. And she came over and she introduced us to these chipper brushes that you can get in Mexico. And she just started softening all the edges. And the chipper brushes that we get in Mexico, they're different. I think it's a boar's hair. But anyway, so I'm not afraid to go and just soften everything in my painting and then come back and add the edges and the detail that I need to. It's given me the freedom. Like you can destroy a painting completely and then come back and pop a few things and it's there.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's good for people who are too hard-edged and who paint too much detail. Like do not paint every leaf.
Yeah, I've heard that called EFL, every effing leaf.
Yeah. And
also,
so, and
I also really appreciate that thought about destroying. I also really appreciate that thought about destroying something. In fact, I think I just learned something from you because I know I do a lot of hard-edged lines, just trying to get the scene correct. I do go in and break it up some, but I haven't done it enough, I think, because I like that idea of knowing that you just come back to it as opposed to when in the destruction, that's it. So I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah. And then one other workshop I took was with Roger Dale Brown. He gives a very organized, very good workshop. And we had a rainy day once and we were in a studio instead of outside. And he projected a landscape up on, it was a woodsy scene, and he projected it up on a screen. And then he unfocused it. He took it out of focus. And he said, okay, paint the darkest darks. And then gave us, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And then he sharpened it slightly. He said, now paint the next lighter color. And then he focused it completely. And then we could come with the details. So when I'm out painting, I try just to see the darks and then see the next color and then the next color, the lights last. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I know that I find these monochromatic kinds of things where you can see the different contrasts very helpful in painting. I've learned a lot from those. In fact, I think there's one behind me, the alley that you helped me on with one of my first paintings. Yeah. Right. But that was very helpful, just working in the monochromatic, the gray or the black and white.
Right.
So, yeah. And there's
taking workshops would be advice. Do not start with your lights. Start with your darks. You see beginners putting in lights. So start with the darks because you don't want to mix lights into the darks because it's hard to get them back. Keep your darks dark. And then you be creative. Use a lot of tools. Scrape out. I use credit cards that I've cut to give me different edges.
Old credit cards.
Right. So, I'll cut them into different shapes, so I can use edges of them. I can pick up paint and use it because when I use a knife, oftentimes a knife has a curve to it and somehow my hand pulls it into a curve. So this I can use better it works better for me to get a real straight edge.
Yeah, great.
So, but also for plein air painters, travel light, use limited palette if you struggle with colors. Do not put black on your palette. I mean, I think that's a controversial issue, but I say don't use black. Use the other colors because it'll harmonize better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know, wear sunblock and a hat. Oh, I, for the most part, do not paint with an umbrella. Very rarely. I always just try to find a spot in the shade, which might limit my options, but somehow I've managed.
Yeah, well, that's when we're out with you on July 7th. I think that'll be we'll probably be under one of the bridges, I'm guessing.
Well, that's why I pick it. The Wabash Street Bridge has a really wide platform and shade. Mm-hmm. So even if it's raining, and yeah, I like to paint the building. I'm not, you know, with the flag, the Wrigley building, because it's only up for a week, and it just feels sort of special.
It is, and it's so Chicago. It's everything. That's perfect. Yeah, I'm looking.
So, yeah, some of my paintings I consider souvenir paintings, and some of them I consider more fine art. And so, like if I paint the bean, or if I paint the Wrigley building with the flag, to me those are sort of souvenir paintings. Yeah. I mean, maybe if I brought them to a different level, they'd be fine art per se. But then other paintings that just elicit an emotion and a feeling, I consider fine art.
Yeah.
I don't know how to judge that, but sometimes I value more of my paintings as fine art versus souvenir art.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Well, I know that people want and clamor for your paintings while they're still on the easel. So especially that one. Yeah. So speaking of that, and what are some of the things you have coming up, exhibits and other kinds of activities?
Well, other than the demo for the plein air group, I've got a joint show, a 2-person show with Errol Jacobson. It's called Duality, and it will be at the Palette and Chisel September 5th through the 15th. Mm-hmm. So I'm working hard on my still lifes to get a body of work to exhibit.
Well, that's great. That's great. And then we'll see you out on July 7th, which is terrific. And everybody is invited to paint. And the great thing too is that at noon on that day, we'll be starting at 9 o'clock, or I'm sorry, at 8 o'clock on July 7th. But at noon, we'll do a critique that for members and first-time painters, they could be part of that critique. So if you're coming for the first time, we'll include you in the critique, and of course, all our members have that privilege as well. Stephanie, any other advice? Actually, no. I think what we want to do is see a tour of your studio. Do you want to take us around?
Okay, I'll show you a little bit of the studio.
Good.
I've got some of my paintings up. All right, bear with me.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so this is my half of the studio. So I've got some of my paintings up. So this is where I set up my still lifes.
And you made that? Did you make your still life stand?
No, it's a metal cart. It's just a metal cart, but then, yeah, you have to improvise to hang a background. Mm-hmm. So, and I have lots of still life stuff sitting around, that might inspire me. And so more of my still lifes. And then I've pulled some of my plein air work. As you can see, I like doing elevations, and I like using contrast and color.
Yeah.
So we have a sink to wash our brushes.
That's terrific.
And and then just more paintings up there. Those are all Errol's. So, and you guys saw Errol's big easel. Mine's not so big, though. Mine is it's a eucalyptus something or other, but
it looks
maybe
nice.
Yeah, it's a goodie. So let me switch back.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, I'm very happy to spend some time with you and learning a little bit more about you. I also just want to make sure that I invite you to my solo show that's coming up. We'll be having in June 28th at the Chimera Gallery, and it's my first show. So
is that Evanston?
It's in Evanston. Thanks. Yeah, it's Central and Central Park. So
Okay, great.
yeah, so I'm doing the same thing. I'm feeling that sense of really.
What's the date?
It'll be June 20. I'm sorry. Yeah, June 20. No, yeah, June 28th.
Okay,
Will be the opening. So
great.
yeah. So anyway, but thank you so much for your time and for us to get a glimpse of your studio and just to know more about you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm saying goodbye and
Okay.
see.
Thanks for your work, Mary.
Oh, sure. I so enjoy it.